trade. Yes, I did tape these on the same day because, as you can see, I'm wearing the same clothes. I guess if I was a female teacher, I probably would have to change clothes because they're kind of more alert that they don't want to see the same clothes on them all the time. I'm going to be honest with you, I am. So when we're talking about, we have moved from chapter 8, social studies, now we're moving into chapter 11, which is medieval Europe. Okay, medieval Europe's kind of fun when you're talking about, feudalism and all the ways and means of kind of like relates a little bit to, Sir Gawain and the Green Knight and Sir Lancelot. When you think of medieval, you kind of can think of that kind of time. So one of the questions is, how did Europe change during the Middle Ages? Well, during the medieval period, the Germanic tribes created their own small kingdoms and ruled over Europe. Okay, the Franks settled in what is now France. Clovis started taking over the Frankish tribes when he was just 16. 16, and he was taken over. He ruled the kingdom for 30 years, making strong military and converting his subjects into Christians. So this guy, by the time he was 16, was ruling empires. Most of you are 14. What empire are you going to rule? Keep that in mind. All right. After this era of the Franks and of Clovis, it came the period historians all call the Middle Ages, and this era lasted from 500 to 1450 in Western Europe, and it's also known as the medieval period. Medieval comes from the Latin word middle and avium, meaning age. So it's the Middle Ages. When we talk about the political and cultural changes of the Middle Ages, okay, tribes that settled in the Roman lands in the early part of the Middle Ages preferred their own traditions to Roman ways. So after defeating Rome, they decided, we're not going to pick up Roman ways, we're going to keep our own. The region's many waterways offered ideal routes and networks for trading. So that seems to be a ongoing theme that wherever there's water, there's great trade. Okay, common sense. Um, New settlers had their own ideas about government. So everybody has their own ideas about government, right? Doesn't matter who our president is; they all have their own ideas, even though we're a democracy. Okay, the Franks united to form powerful kingdoms, but didn't create large centralized governments. Okay, the people obeyed unwritten rule. We can't do that here. We can't live under unwritten rule because unwritten rule has too many interpretations because written rule has too many interpretations. So, as trade began to disappear in the regions, cities disappeared. So, this whole concept of trade and civilization is prevalent throughout all of history. If businesses close, people move. There's no populations. You see, it's no different. Okay, before the 500s, most Germanic people, including the Angles, the Jutes, and the Saxons, practiced their traditional religions and worshipped many gods. So early on, they did what they wanted to do as far as religion went. After the Germanic leaders came to power, however, many of them converted to Christianity. So the Germanic tribe leaders brought Christianity to the Germanic tribes. All right, the first leader to convert was Clovis, who was the ruler of the Franks. Okay, when he converted to Christianity, many of his subjects did too. Christianity spread and increased in influence. Even though the Western Roman Empire had disappeared, the city of Rome itself retained a certain amount of power and strength, remaining the home of the Pope as well as the center of Christianity, even though Christianity was flourishing outside of Rome and into other European sections. Okay. When we talk about medieval Europe after Clovis, and then we're going to look at Clovis, and then we're going to look at after Clovis. We'll After Clovis comes Charlemagne. Charlemagne, um, wow, he was a great leader, a great ruler. He ruthlessly destroyed his enemies, but loved learning. He was tall for that time, I guess. He was 5'10", so if that was tall. He was a commanding figure, but usually wore simple clothing. He didn't dress up like a king did. He just was normal. He received gifts from foreign kings. He loved Germanic music and heroes. In spite of all this, these contradictions, he became the first emperor in the Western Europe since the fall of the Western Roman Empire. Read that again to you. He became the first emperor in Western Europe since the fall of the Western Empire, Roman Empire. They didn't call this king of the Franks Charlemagne or Charles the Great for nothing because he was great. Okay? Charlemagne was a mighty ruler. He was a mighty ruler. 200 years after Clovis died, Charlemagne became the Frankish king in 1768, or 768. Charlemagne wanted to unite his rule in all of the Germanic kingdoms because he felt he was powerful enough, and he had to do this by battling the Slavs, the Lombards, and the Saxons, who reigned in what is now Germany. Okay, he brought many of the German tribes together as one people and became the strongest leader of the Western European world. He believed in law and order, appointed officials to run all his areas outside of his main world, and they would meet once every year, and he would bring back those that were behaving, those who weren't behaving, and then from there he would go out and take care of business. All right. Charlemagne founded schools for people. He protected the weak against injustice. So he believed in taking care of the meek and weak. Um, a lot like when we look at some of the Chinese emperors that were able to build the China empires and dynasties through uh, by helping the peasants live and do well. So one of the biggest thing is he strengthened the Christianity inside his kingdom. Charlemagne's wars against the German tribes had fought on forever, and after he conquered the Saxons, he said he would put to death anybody that would not convert to Christianity. Now, that in itself was not like a lot of people. You didn't convert, he killed you, which means that he killed more than 4,000 Saxons because they refused to convert. Charlemagne was also a loyal defender of the Pope. Well, that makes sense because if he was such a proponent of Christianity, he would have to be a proponent of the Pope. And that at that time was Pope Leo the Third. Okay? And the Pope passed all these laws and chipped away one at a time at the nobles of Rome. So they all rebelled against him. So Leo was in this conundrum with the nobles of Rome because they would not want to follow his lead. And Leo the Third decided to call upon Charlemagne to come in and kind of like protect him and take care of business. Charlemagne did so. He came in and he was able to control the nobles. And out of respect, I would believe, out of respect, um, Pope Leo the Third crowned Charlemagne emperor of the Romans. This is interesting because, excuse me, Charlemagne became the first Germanic emperor of Rome. Interesting. Now, let's look at some of these things about Charlemagne that you're not going to find in your book. I found a couple kind of interesting. Excuse me. His father wasn't born a king. Usually, if you're a king, your father was a king, but he wasn't born a king. And Charlemagne's father was known as Pepin the Third, and they called him Pepin the Short. So I would imagine Pepin the Short. I don't know why. If you maybe it was 5'5" or 5'3", I don't know why they called him Pepin the Short. Um, but he was the first king of the Franks. His brother, after Pepin the Short died, his brother, Charlemagne's brother, and himself actually became kings, co-kings, right? And they shared this power um, not too long because his brother died quickly. Huh, died quickly. That's interesting. But did he die because of, excuse me. Man, no, I don't have anything, just a cough. All right. Charlemagne was considered the father of Europe. Um, his bloody campaigns spread throughout Europe. When Pope Leo the Third actually named him the emperor of Western Europe, of Western Roman Empire, which is gone, it surprised Charlemagne greatly because he did not know this was going to actually happen. Um, but once he did this, Charlemagne considered his empire a direct successor to the Western Europe and the glory of Rome. One of the things that Charlemagne was able to do was make standard currency in his empire. He dressed in common clothes and he was illiterate. He couldn't read and write. Kind of amazing, don't you think? He couldn't read and write, but yet he was a proponent and pushed education upon his people. So that I find kind of cool because just because he can't do it doesn't mean that you shouldn't. I use that line all the time. Um, he had 18 children with 5 different wives, and even more interesting, Charlemagne. Charlemagne is the king of heart. So when you open up a deck of cards, that's a Charlemagne. Every king in a deck of cards is named after one emperor, and Charlemagne is the king of hearts. So there you go. There you go. I'm going to put some work up for you starting tomorrow. That's your lecture on Charlemagne, and I'll get you up another lecture this week. I just hope everybody's good. I would expect you guys to come to office hours, and I wish you the best. Be safe, and have a gorgeous day. Keep the peace. Miss you guys.